What is up, everyone? My name's Chris. Welcome back to another episode of Garage Noise, where we help you build your skill and increase your knowledge about paint and body repair. In today's episode, we will be doing a start to finish repair on this Toyota Corolla. It was hit in the front end. It pushed the radiator support back, busted the headlight, damaged the front bumper cover, and put a dent in the fender. So we have a lot of repair in this video. There's a lot to learn. We're going to show you how to straighten a dent in the fender. We're going to show you how to straighten the dent in the bumper cover and do a little bit of pulling as well. So let's get started. Okay, so we got this Toyota tore all apart now. Of course, the headlight is damaged. That needs to be replaced. So we're going to replace that. There is a little bit of damage on this front bumper cover right here. A scratch and a little bit of a indentation. We're going to repair that. But I wanted to tear this apart to look at this inner structure section and see how bad the damage was, or if there was any damage. It looks like we're going to do some measurements, and I'll show you how we do that, but it looks like this may be pushed in just a little bit, and that's what buckled this fender here and caused this headlight to hit this fender and buckle it. As you can see right there, there's a buckle in this fender right here. But I think we might just be able to straighten this out. We're going to look it over real well and see if there's any damage. Like, there's little things like this I know is bent. We need to straighten that out. Top of this radiator support has been pushed in. We know right here by looking at it that this bracket right here where the headlight attaches has been bent in. Okay, so we need to straighten that out first. I'm going to try and fit this headlight up and see where else it could be bent. I believe this section right here has been pushed in just a tad. I did some measurements and it's a little bit off. I loosened up the bolts here and you can see it naturally came out just a bit. So we're going to try and fit it up like it is, and then I'm going to straighten this back to the position that it needs to be. Straighten this bracket. To do that, I'm going to just use a slide hammer with a hook. Carefully hook on the end of this. It's not going to take much. I'll probably just pull here a little bit. Is there anything in this metal? That should do it right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out on the edge of this and then hammer right here with the rubber mallet just to straighten this out. Okay, this bracket still needs to come out farther. Okay, so that bracket's just still a little far in. It needs to come out a little farther. I'm starting to suspect that this support may be pushed back. I did measure it and it was really close, so I think I didn't think this was bent in any. So I'm going to look around, see if I can inspect it and see any kinks or anything that's going to tell me that this is bent. Okay, so now I'm going to take some measurements on each side of this radiator support, and what I found out that it was back just a ½ an inch on that side. So we need to pull it an inch to get a ½ an inch. So I'm going to tear it apart. We're going to set up our pulling post with our chain fall here and pull this out just a tad. Okay, so now I put a little pressure on this, and if I can get it in the light, you can see where these bolt holes lined up pretty much. Once I tap this down, that's going to move this way, and these bolt holes will line up perfectly. Now, I may have to pull it a little bit more, but I'm going to tap this down, reinstall these bolts, and then pull it some more if I need to. So there's a bow right here. So I'm just going to tap on this bow, and that will stretch out this metal back to where it's supposed to be. And that should do it right there. It's not going to take much. Okay, we're going to leave it right there. And I used the rubber hammer so I wouldn't damage this metal. We don't want to have to paint there. A little bit more of a pull, and then we'll check the fitment. When you pull this, you got to over pull. So I need to go a ½ an inch, so I need to over pull a ½ an inch to get that ½ an inch to stay. That looks pretty dang good. This bracket is still off a little bit, so I'm going to measure this core support again to see what we have. Both those core supports are at 22, so that's perfect. So now we need to address this and get this to fit properly. Okay, so now that we have it all pulled out, as you can see, the bolt lines up perfectly there, and all the bolts on this headlight line up in perfect position. The gap on the fender is good with the headlight. The measurement is good. So I think we're good to test fit this up. I'm gonna put the bumper on and just, you always wanna test fit everything before you start doing any body work or dent repair or paint work. I like to go ahead and just put it all together, and then it's easy to take back apart. So we're just gonna install the bumper here, check everything, make sure it fits good. That way when we're done painting, we know it's gonna go together smoothly and there's not gonna be any issues. Now I'm gonna go ahead and tighten all the bolts down, shut the hood, we'll take a look at all the gaps, and it's still got the dent in the fender there, but all the gaps look pretty well. I did notice on this end of that bumper cover, it's in just a little bit. So I need to adjust that headlight. I think that's all it's gonna take to get that squared up. So we have this dent right here on this fender. Before I take this all apart and I pull this dent out with a spot puller, what I'm gonna try and do is use a glue tab. What I'm gonna use is the Glexo cold glue system to pull this dent out. And we're gonna just see how it works. I've used this a couple times before. I don't know how well it's gonna work on this particular ding, but I'm gonna pull this center out right here, and I wanna show you exactly how it's gonna work. So you got the cold glue right here, and I'm gonna start right here in this low area there. So you wanna warm this up a little bit, make sure your panel's kinda warm. Wow, that took it out quite a bit. Well, actually, let me try on this ridge right here. Okay, so now I'm gonna use these are a couple tap downs. One has a dull end to it, and then one has a sharper end. There's a real sharp point where that headlight or something pushed that out. So we need to tap down this high ridge here, and then there's a crown right here we need to knock out. Okay, I'm going to show you what we have here. If you can see in the light, there's a low spot right there. Hard to see, but let me sand this down. I'll block sand it so I can show you where the low spots are. Okay, let's just wash this real quick so you can see where the high and low areas are. Okay, so I blocked it, and you can see right there's a low area. Little dent there. We're gonna pull that out. And there's a low area right in here. I was blocking it like this, and it broke through here because this is high because this is low here. This is where that ridge is, that crown that we're knocking down. So there's still a little bit of a crown there, and this is a good way just to get an idea of how it looks. There's a low area here, there's a crown here, so we need to kind of straighten this out. I'm going to dolly this around a little bit more, try and get that out a little bit better, and then we'll sand it a little bit better as I pull this out And I may try and pry behind this and push that dent out. Okay, so I'm gonna run over this real quick with some 180 grit sandpaper on the foam pad, and we're gonna kind of block this out so we can see what the high and low areas are and see what we can get out and what we can't. Okay, so now I'm gonna try and push this low spot out right here, and you can see high area, there's a low. This has a natural curve to it, but it's a little bit lower than it's supposed to be. So it's got more of a curve than it should. But I think this can be taken care of real easy with just a thin coat of glaze. We need to get rid of this high area and then get rid of this low area. So I'm gonna push behind this and try and pop that out, and then we'll sand it again and see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm gonna just use this PDR tool to get behind here. I do have a little bit of leverage here, and I'm gonna push out on this low area and work it out. Okay, let's sand it. Okay, so a lot of that came out. So I'm gonna try and tap down this ridge just a little bit more. That feels pretty good. Let's grind this down now and get it prepped out for some filler. Okay, so we got it all ground down and ready for some filler, and I'm just using some Maxi Light made by Roberlo. It's a premium body filler. It's just nice and smooth, and we're just gonna lay a thin coat on here. I know this looks like a lot, but it's really not. 90% of this is gonna be blocked off. While this is drying, let's go ahead and move on to the bumper cover. We need to address what's going on with this bumper cover. We have a little low area. The damaged portion of this bumper is right here, and if you can see that in the light, we need to repair that. It also has a little bit of a kink here in the edge of this bumper. We're going to repair that as well. So in order to do that, we need to strip this bumper down, remove this grill, remove these trim pieces here in order to repair it and paint it properly. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so now let's repair this low spot right here in this bumper. There's a little dent there, and then there's some spider cracking along the top. We're going to machine sand that out, and if you can see it here, you may not be able to see it, but right there is some spider cracking from where the bumper flexed. It cracked the paint, so we need to machine sand this, and then we'll primer that with some 2K primer. So let's machine sand this out with 80 grit, and we'll put a little bit of flexible filler in here to repair that dent. Okay, so I heated this area up from the back side, and I pushed it out with a wet rag, and that took out most of this dent. So it's just a minor wave in here that we're gonna use a little bit of flexible filler, and I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so now we have this bumper all sanded with 80 grit and ready for some filler. So the filler I'm going to use today is Bumper Bite. This is a new product to me, the first time I'm using it, so I don't know if I will recommend it, but it's a flexible filler designed for bumper covers. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and I've mixed up some of this Bumper Bite and we're laying it in the dent. I'm going to go ahead and block sand it quickly with some 80 just to knock it down, and then reevaluate it, see if I need to add some more. So after getting it blocked out, we can see there's still a little low area in between those areas right there where we went through into the plastic. So we need to put another thin coat over that and another thin coat over that little crease that was in the front edge of that bumper. Okay, so we're back on this body filler. This body filler is dry. I want to just go over it with the DA with the 80 grit sandpaper on the foam pad. And the reason I'm using this foam pad, it doesn't quite cut as well, but it's going to go into those contours of this body. It has a little bit of a contour in this body. So I just want to flatten it out just a little bit, and then we're going to block it with some 180. So I'm just knocking it down with 80, and then we're going to block it with 180. We want to gradually take those scratches from 80 to 600. So we're working our way down, go over it with 80, then we'll go over it with 180 and 320, and then we'll prime it between 320 and 600. So Okay, now let's block it with some 180. And I've just got this foam pad. I'll probably switch over to a more flexible pad, but I'm just gonna roll with the contours of this body for now. And we're gonna block it in an X pattern or cross pattern to get it straight. Let me spray some guide coat on this so you guys can see exactly what the results are. Okay, so let's just stop there. Feels pretty good. We still need to block right here. It doesn't show any high spots, but it's not straight right here. I can feel it. There's a little, this body filler right here needs to be blocked down a little bit. We got a low spot here, and that's where that little ding was. But that, I'm pretty confident will block out. We continue blocking, but you can see where the guide coat is still left in that dent. Here, there's a little low spot. So once we get that blocked out, now we're starting to break through here into bare metal. You can see this kind of this is not guide coat. This is a little transparency where you can see the metal through the filler. So we are starting to break through here. So we want to be careful of that. Once you break into bare metal, now you're not probably going to be blocking it properly if you're blocking over that bare metal. So you need to change your blocking. We may have to put another little skim coat of some Roberlo crystal glaze in here just to smooth that out just a little bit. So let's continue blocking and get this straight. Okay, so I'm switching to the foam block. I'm gonna block this a little bit with 320 to remove those 180 scratches, and then we'll prime this and get it ready. Okay, so now this is ready for primer. We need to tape it off. We're gonna tape right on that edge, right on the peak of that edge, and that'll help us to contain our paint line. We're gonna prime this edge, so we're gonna tape on the back side of this, and then right on the point of this edge as well. And then when we pull the paper, we just have a light sanding on that edge, and that'll knock that hard edge down. So before we do that though, let's go back over to the bumper, check it out, and finish blocking that body filler. Okay, so this is all ready for primer. We've went over it with 180, and then we went over it with 320. I did not go over it with 600. We're gonna primer over the 320. I've sanded the top of this bumper cover here, and then I've sanded over here where there's some cracked paint. So we're gonna primer that. We're just gonna tape this up. I've blown it off, and we're gonna tape it up and spray it with primer. So I'm gonna go ahead and tape up the fender as well. Since we're priming the bumper, we're gonna prime the fender at the same time, and then we'll be ready to sand that primer and get this vehicle painted. Listen up, if you're enjoying this content and wanna see more, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and click the bell so you don't miss any upcoming content. Okay, so I've mixed up some Roberlo ME1 2K urethane primer. We're gonna 2K prime this fender and this bumper. I am using the 3M AccuSpray gun. Works out well for a primer gun. If you haven't seen the video review and demo on this gun, check it out. I'll leave a link at the end. So I wanna make sure I get those areas that were cracked, spider cracking on the bumper cover, covered with this 2K urethane primer. Because if you paint over those, they will show through the paint and the clear coat, and you will be able to see those. So now I'm going to go ahead and block this primer with some 320 grit sandpaper on a small block. We'll get this bumper all straightened out and ready for paint. Okay, so I back taped this edge here right on that, kind of on that primer line, and then we sanded it with some 600 grit to knock that rough area down. Sand it right along here, wherever we taped up and created a hard edge of primer. We want to knock that down smooth. So this is ready to go now. So what we're going to do is I am going to loosen up that splash shield so I can spray clear in there so it doesn't peel at a later date. Move things around in the shop, get this positioned to where I want it, and we'll get ready to spray it. Do a quick spray out on this. Okay, I'm going to do a quick spray out on this spray out card. This is a spray out card. It helps determine if you have a good color match. It's also going to tell you how many coats of paint you need to cover primer and get a good transition for the blend. So this particular color looks like it takes 4 to 5 coats to get a good coverage on this primer. We're going to go ahead and use some wax and grease remover, wash this bumper down, and now I'm going to go ahead and spray some Bulldog adhesion promoter over the bumper. I like to use adhesion promoter on these bumpers that have intricate areas that need to be sanded. It's just a good insurance policy so you don't have any concerns with peeling paint. So now we're going to go ahead and put our first coat of paint on the bumper, and we're going to wash down the fender and mask off this car and get it ready to spray. So I've used some soft edge foam masking tapes on the jambs, and then I outline the panel with tape and some masking paper, and then we'll cover the entire vehicle with the plastic. This will just give us some good protection from overspray, and this plastic is automotive grade plastic, so it's treated, so there won't be any problem with paint peeling off of this plastic into our clear or anything of that nature. So we went ahead and we washed this fender with some wax and grease remover. That's going to remove any contaminants that are on the fender. And then I tacked it off just before I sprayed my first coat of base. So I already have a few coats of paint on this bumper cover, so I'm just going around with my light and making sure I don't have any light areas. Those are things you want to look for before you clear coat. You want to be concerned around the edges. Those are the areas that typically get missed. So make sure you have good coverage on your bumper or whatever panel you're painting before you clear coat. Okay, so here I'm just doing a little blend because I didn't paint this entire bumper cover. I don't want to go right out to the edge of that bumper cover. I was just covering the primer and then blending into the edge there. Okay, so we're going to put one final coat of paint on the bumper cover and the fender. I'll probably just do a little blend on the fender. That's all that's left. It's pretty much covered. So I'm going to blend it out just a little bit here so we have a smooth transition into the old color. And then we'll start clearing. So we'll check it out with the light one more time, just looking for any light areas. And then we'll start clearing. Now I am using the Sagola 3300 GTO. If you haven't seen the review and demo on this gun, check it out. I'll leave a link at the end. Now the clear I'm using is a Valspar V-Series clear. Of course, I'm going to leave all the links to the tools and the products I use in the description below, if I can. I'm trying to focus on giving you guys all the information you need about all the materials and tools I use, just in case you're interested or curious, and I'll leave all those links in the description if they are available. As far as the gun settings for my clear coat, I am running 26 PSI. I am doing 3 turns out on the clear coat today. It's a little bit of a warmer day, so I want to make sure there's enough clear going on this panel. And when it's warmer, it tends to dry quicker, so I need a little bit more material coming out of the gun. Now, all those settings are going to vary depending on how you're spraying, where you're spraying, what gun you're using, what kind of clear you're using. So that is a good guideline. A good guideline would be 26 PSI and about 2.5 turns out to start when you're starting to clear, and then adjust from there. But a few techniques don't change, and that is your distance from the panel. You can vary this, but you want to be about 4 to 5 inches away. You want to have consistent speed. You don't want to be stopping on the panel when you're clear coating. You want to run right over the panel. And you can watch here, I'm just doing consistent speed. I'm overlapping 60 to 70%. I'm watching the clear lay on this panel and seeing how it lays down. If it's not laying the way I want it, I'm going to adjust my gun, adjust my speed, or adjust the way I'm spraying. The main thing is you want to have a consistent distance, you want to overlap, have a consistent speed, you want to keep your fan pattern parallel with that panel as much as possible, and that'll give you the best results. And if you want more detailed instruction on how to lay clear light glass, I've got a video on that topic. I will leave it at the end. Check it out. Okay, we're putting the second and final coat of clear on this bumper cover. It's laying out light glass. It's a beautiful finish and a beautiful color. So we'll get ready to put this back together. We'll take a look at the finished product and see how this repair turned out. So here's where pre-fitting this bumper cover and headlight and everything pays off. Now I know I can just put this car together and everything's going to fit properly. It's going to line up. We're going to have good gaps and we'll be ready to deliver it to the customer. So I'm going to finish putting it together and let's check out the finished product.